I was still holding the Macallan when he fired me. 25-year-old Scotch brought it in to welcome the new CEO on his first day. He didn't even look at the bottle, just looked past it, past me, and said, "Douglas Brennan, your time here is over." I'm Doug Brennan, 53 years old, 28 years with this company, and I'd just been fired in the lobby. No hello, no why, just the sentence that pulls the floor out from under a person. I didn't drop the bottle. I didn't argue. I stood there long enough to feel the heat spread up my neck, then I nodded once and said, "Understood, sir." I set the Macallan on the reception desk and walked to my office. The lobby went quiet. The receptionist stared. A junior operations manager half rose from his chair and sat back down. Everyone watching, waiting for me to make a scene. I didn't. 28 years I'd given this company. Started as a logistics coordinator when we had 3 trucks and a dream. Built the vendor network one late-night phone call at a time. Pulled failing contracts out of nosedives. Trained people who now had corner offices. It had cost me plenty, including a marriage that ended because I couldn't leave work at the office. But I told myself it mattered because the results were real, because I was building something that would outlast whatever name sat in the CEO chair. Apparently that name decided I was disposable before he figured out where the bathrooms were. I packed slowly. A photo of my kids when they were young. A coffee mug from our first major client. A stack of handwritten notes from my team. Thank yous and inside jokes. Small anchors that kept me honest on hard days. I placed the bottle of Macallan on top of the box. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Carol, texting from the hospital. "How's the new boss?" I stared at the screen. Couldn't tell her. Not now. She was halfway through chemo round 2. She didn't need this on top of everything else. I typed back, "Tell you tonight," then put the phone away. People watched as I carried the box out. Some mouthed, "What happened?" I gave the smallest shake of my head. Not here, in my truck. It hit me in waves. Humiliation, then anger, then something sharper. Focus. On the drive home, the anger faded, but the focus stayed. Firing me on his first day, before a single meeting, before asking what projects were in motion. He had no clue. 3 days earlier, I'd sat in a glass-walled conference room across from Shipley Manufacturing's general counsel and COO. Final pass on a supply agreement a year in the making. One that would underpin our expansion for the next 5 years. We'd cleared pricing, timelines, logistics headaches you only notice once trucks start rolling. Then their counsel, Louise Treadwell, slid a final page across the table. "Key person clause," she said. "We've been burned before." My name was there in black ink. Project Director of Record. Continuity of leadership on our side wasn't a courtesy. It was a condition. If I left the company or was reassigned without mutual written consent, Shipley Manufacturing could terminate immediately. No penalty to them. And we'd forfeit the onboarding credit line we were counting on to finance the ramp. I knew why they wanted it. I also knew we needed the deal. So we negotiated. Tight timelines, limited carve-outs, clarity on what reassignment meant. And then we signed. I left that room with 2 things, their trust and a document that made me the hinge the door swung on. I didn't tell anyone at the office beyond the usual approvals. The red lines were legal. The signatures were in the deal room. The clause was in the version control system that pings whenever anyone alters a comma. It wasn't a secret. It was just something you only see if you look. He hadn't looked. At home, I set the box on the kitchen table and stared at the Macallan until condensation started beading on the glass. I thought about calling my ex-wife, who would have said I told you so about loving that job more than anything else. I thought about Carol in that hospital bed 3 miles away, the IV drip, the insurance card in my wallet that would expire in 30 days if I didn't get this sorted. That part wasn't about pride or dignity. That was survival. My phone buzzed with messages from the team. I didn't respond. Not yet. I wasn't going to run back waving a document like a victory flag. I wasn't going to text the new CEO a list of reasons he'd made a mistake. A person who believes power is a stage prop doesn't hear reason. They only hear applause or silence. I gave him silence. I opened my laptop, forwarded nothing, printed nothing. I wrote down in a private notebook everything that had happened from the moment I walked into the lobby to the moment I closed my front door. Names, words, small details I knew memory would blur by morning. Then I closed the notebook and made dinner. Underneath the embarrassment was a different feeling. Relief. Not relief at losing a job I'd bled for, but relief at finally seeing the truth of the place I worked. Some people wear their values like a uniform. Others only when the weather suits them. I barely slept. Kept dreaming about work, about missing deadlines, about locked doors I couldn't open. Morning light sharpened everything. I brewed coffee and opened my garage. My '67 Mustang sat there, chrome gleaming, a project I'd been restoring for 5 years. I grabbed a polishing cloth and worked on the hood, thinking through angles. Strategy always came easier with my hands busy. I didn't need to make the first move. The company would. Shipley Manufacturing's onboarding packet triggered automatically once all signatures were verified. It included a welcome note, access credentials, and a polite reminder of the key person clause. We value continuity. If circumstances change, notify us immediately. Legal received the same packet. Finance received the draw schedule tied to that contract. I poured my coffee and watched steam rise. Somewhere in an office with a view and a nameplate not yet screwed straight, a notification pinged. Then another, then another. By the time I set the mug down, my phone was vibrating across the counter. When my phone rang that morning, I let it buzz until the screen went dark. Then it lit up again. Same number, Meridian's main line. I knew if I answered, a floodgate would open and I wasn't ready. By the third call, curiosity got the better of me. I swiped. Doug, a clipped voice said. It was Paula Kowalski, executive assistant to the CEO. For as long as I'd been there, she'd been the one keeping chaos from spilling out of that corner office. Always professional, rarely emotional. But today I heard something new in her voice. Panic. You need to come in, she said. No greeting, no pleasantries. There's an issue. I don't work there anymore. Remember? Doug, listen. She lowered her voice like someone might overhear through the phone. The Shipley contract is unraveling. Legal flagged your name. They can't move forward without you. Mr. Abbott, he doesn't understand. He thought it was a formality. It's not. He needs you back in that chair before this blows up in his face. Her words tumbled quickly, each one heavier than the last. I set the mug down before it slipped from my hand. I'm not going to rush over just because he made a mistake, I said finally, surprised at how calm I sounded. He fired me, Paula. Silence stretched on the other end. Then carefully, I understand. But please think about it. The board is already circling. They won't tolerate losing Shipley. I ended the call without making a promise. The rest of the morning blurred. I tried reading, but the words floated. I went for a drive, but every intersection felt like it might lead back to the office. By lunchtime, I had no appetite. Only a gnawing question. Did I want to save them? Because I could. One call, one meeting, and the deal would steady again. But that also meant stepping back into the same halls where I'd been dismissed like a spare part. I didn't owe them that. Still, I owed myself clarity. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I called Malcolm Donnelly, an old colleague who'd retired early to consulting but still kept an ear to the ground. If anyone knew what was really happening inside, it would be Mal. He picked up on the second ring. Doug, I heard. You okay? I'm fine, I lied. But tell me straight. How bad is it? He didn't hesitate. It's bad. Word spread fast that you were out. Shipley's people apparently called their counsel twice this morning asking for confirmation. When they didn't get it, they froze the contract. The new CEO, this Abbott kid he tried to bluff in front of the board, said he was restructuring, but someone pointed out the clause. He looked like he'd been hit with a brick. I leaned against the counter, gripping the edge until my knuckles went white. They'll try to pull you back in, Mal continued, tone softening. But if you go, make sure it's on your terms. Don't let them sweep this under the rug. They need you more than you need them right now. His words echoed after we hung up, on my terms. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I opened my laptop again. My inbox was flooded. Messages from teammates, from legal, even from accounting. Most were polite, urgent, professional. A few carried a note of desperation. But one stood out. It was from Paula again. Just 4 words, please call me tonight. I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I opened the scanned contract. Line by line, I traced the clause that now held the entire company hostage. My name wasn't just ink on a page. It was leverage. Proof that my work, my presence had weight. And for the first time since being fired, I felt the balance shift. Not in their favor, in mine. I closed the laptop and sat in silence, watching the city lights blink on through the window. Somewhere in that glittering grid, he was pacing, scrambling, trying to stitch together authority he hadn't earned. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about respect, dignity. About whether 28 years of loyalty could be erased by a careless decision, or whether I would finally demand what I was worth. I picked up my phone, not to call Paula, not yet, but to draft a message. 7 words, nothing more. We can talk. My conditions, not his. I stared at the unsent text for a long time, then finally tapped send. Paula called within a minute. What conditions? She asked, voice low like she'd stepped into an empty corridor. I want a written reinstatement retroactive to the day I was fired, I said. Full authority over Shipley Manufacturing with no interference. I report directly to legal on this one, not to Abbott. If anyone tries to reassign me without the client's written consent, the contract stands and I walk with severance intact. Also a non-retaliation clause. She was quiet, taking it down. I'll get legal and HR in a room. Can you come in? I'll come as a visitor, I said. No badge until I sign. When I pushed through the lobby doors the next morning, the air had that charged stillness you get before a storm breaks. Faces lifted, conversation stopped mid-sentence. The bottle of Macallan sat on the receptionist's shelf, and a too small vase of flowers someone had tried to turn into a gesture. I kept my eyes on the front desk. Mr. Brennan, the receptionist said, relief clear in her voice. They're expecting you. Security issued a visitor sticker like I was any other outsider. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. The conference room smelled like old coffee and recycled air. The air conditioning hummed in the background, a steady white noise that made everything feel suspended. Paula met me at the conference room. She looked exhausted, the kind of tired that comes from holding a building together with duct tape and hope. General counsel is inside, she said. HR too. Howard Lindgren sat at the table, gray at the temples, reading glasses perched on his head. Carol Fitzpatrick from HR sat beside him with a folder already open. No CEO, Doug, Howie said, standing. Thank you for coming. I'm here for the contract, I replied, taking the seat closest to the door. Making the boundaries clear. He nodded, slid a draft across the table. Reinstatement letter. Retroactive addendum assigning me sole authority over the account for the duration of onboarding. Non-retaliation language. They'd remove subject to business needs where it could weaken my autonomy. I read every line, pen uncapped. Strikes subject to operational review, I said, tapping a sentence. That phrase is a loophole. Howie scratched it out without argument. The door opened. Preston Abbott walked in, all polished impatience. He didn't look at me at first. He looked at the papers. What are we doing? He asked too loudly. Repairing what you broke, I said, not raising my voice. His jaw worked. We don't negotiate personnel decisions with employees. You do when a client has a key person clause, Howie said evenly. We're exposed. Abbott took a step closer to the table. I'm not comfortable with this reporting line. He should report to me. You're not listed anywhere on the Shipley governance grid, I replied. They don't know you. They do know me. That's the point. He glanced at Carol, looking for an ally. She kept her eyes on the folder. This isn't personal, I added. It's continuity. Either we honor what we signed or we admit we agreed to terms we didn't read. Howie slid him a copy of the executed contract, a yellow tab marking the clause. He stared at it, then at me, the posture of a man who had expected the room to bend and found it stubbornly square. Fine, he said, but the word came out brittle. Sign it. I will, I said, after one more thing. A joint email to Shipley Manufacturing from legal, confirming my status and clarifying no changes will be made without their consent. It goes out before I step into any call. Howie nodded, agreed. Abbott's mouth thinned. We are not apologizing to a vendor. They're not a vendor, I said. They're our partner, and today our lifeline. The room went quiet. For a moment, I thought he might derail the whole thing out of pride. Instead, he gave a tight smile and took a seat as if choosing to be magnanimous. We worked through the document line by line. When I finished, I slid the pen back and pushed the papers toward Howie. This language I can live with. Paula reappeared at the door, her face pale. Sorry, she said. This can't wait. Abbott exhaled. What now? She handed Howie a printout. Shipley's counsel forwarded a screenshot. Someone posted on the company LinkedIn. Day 1. Cutting legacy overhead. Time for fresh thinking. It went live half an hour ago. All eyes moved to Abbott. A red blotch crept up his neck. That was a scheduled post, he said. Generic. It wasn't about anyone. It doesn't matter what it was about, I said. It's how it reads. And it went up while their legal team was requesting assurance about leadership stability. Howie pinched the bridge of his nose. We'll delete it now and acknowledge the misstep in the email softly. Then we confirm continuity. Abbott bristled. We are not admitting fault on a public platform. Then we admit it privately to the only people who can tear up our contract without penalty. Howie replied, voice calm but steel-threaded. Choose your pride or your runway. He said nothing. You could tell the board had made up their minds already. I drafted the body of the message. Concise, unambiguous, no flourishes. Continuity confirmed. Authority clarified. Commitment reaffirmed. Howie read it, nodded once, and hit send from legal's account. Credentials? I asked. Limited access, Carol said. Deal room only. She slid a temporary badge across the table. It expires in 72 hours. It will restore your email with legal hold protections. I tucked the badge into my pocket. At the threshold, I paused. One more thing, I said, turning to Abbott. When I walk into that client call, I represent all of us. You don't have to like how we got here, but don't make me defend us and you at the same time. He held my gaze, and for a flicker, I saw the smallest crack. Uncertainty, maybe. Or recognition. Then it was gone. Do your job, he said. I always have, I answered. I didn't open the email from Shipley until I was back in my truck, door shut, silence around me. My hands trembled slightly as I tapped the screen. Before we proceed, we need to address leadership stability. We understand, Mr. Brennan's authority is intact. However, we have concerns regarding public communications that suggest internal instability. Kindly confirm who speaks for your company during this transition. I exhaled. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the company's credibility. One clumsy LinkedIn post had turned a straightforward onboarding into a negotiation about trust. The next morning, I logged in to find my inbox scrubbed. A clean slate, they said it was for compliance. It felt like my history had been boxed up, sealed away where I couldn't touch it. At 10 a.m., I joined the call with Shipley Manufacturing. Louise Treadwell appeared first, face unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. Then their COO, Walt Shipley himself, measured and brisk. Mr. Brennan, Lou said, glad you're with us. We need clarity on 2 points before we continue. 1, public communications. 2, executive oversight. I kept my tone steady. On communications, the post was poorly worded and has been removed. The board has confirmed all external messaging on this account runs through legal and myself. On oversight, your contract names me as sole negotiator. That hasn't changed. Walt leaned closer to the camera. And if it does, then the contract terminates and you're free to walk away without penalty, I said, reciting the clause word for word. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Lou nodded slowly. That matches our understanding. The tension eased a notch. Not much, but enough to move forward. Around noon, Paula slipped into the conference room where I was reviewing logistics charts. She closed the door behind her. He's furious, she whispered. I didn't need to ask who. Because you're back with more authority than he expected. He's been pacing, calling board members, trying to frame it as temporary. But the board's focus is the contract. They don't want headlines about a failed expansion. I leaned back in my chair. So they'll keep me in place until the deal closes. After that, she hesitated. It depends on how many allies you've built in the meantime. Her words sank in. This wasn't over. It was only the opening round. That afternoon, my screen flashed with a new message from Lou Treadwell. Can you confirm Schedule B is your final payment schedule? I frowned. Schedule B was locked. We'd settled the milestone amounts 2 weeks ago. I opened the attachment they'd forwarded back. Our letterhead, my name on the footer, but the numbers were wrong. The deposit was lower, the second milestone pushed out, and a new performance holdback appeared like a stowaway sentence. I hadn't touched it. I pulled the file history from our deal room. The official version showed the correct amounts, last edited by me and Howie. The one Shipley received was uploaded from a shared admin account 37 minutes earlier. Same file name, different hash, and a one-line changelog, minor formatting. I took a screenshot of the metadata and walked straight to legal. Howie looked up as I entered. What is it? I put both versions in front of him. They got a counterfeit Schedule B. He scanned, then swore under his breath. Who has access to the shared admin account? Only 2 offices, I said. Executive Suite and Finance. Timestamp matches when Abbott was in the building. Paula slipped in behind me, closing the door softly. You're not going to like this, she said. He told procurement to update the schedule before they lock us in. He thinks the original terms are too generous. Howie's jaw set. He can't unilaterally change executed terms. If Shipley thinks we're moving the goalposts, they walk and keep their leverage. I dialed Lou Treadwell and put the call on speaker. You received an unauthorized document, I said, voice steady. Please discard it. Legal will send a certified copy of the executed schedule from our repository, and we're initiating an internal review of access controls. Lou didn't bother hiding her irritation. We negotiated in good faith, Mr. Brennan. This looks like bad faith. I understand, I said. Give me 2 hours. You'll have a governance letter signed by our board chair, reaffirming the original terms and my authority. If I can't deliver that, we accept your right to terminate. A pause. 2 hours. We hung up. Howie was already drafting. I'll get the chair on, he said, reaching for the phone. Abbott arrived without knocking, eyes flicking to the papers. Status? We're correcting an unauthorized change, Howie said without looking up. Abbott's smile was thin. There's nothing unauthorized about optimizing cash flow. You altered an executed schedule, I said. That's not optimization. It's breach, he shrugged. They'll accept the new timing. They need us as much as we need them. That's what I'm here for, to optimize our position. Contracts are negotiable until they're in production. This one isn't, Howie said flatly. It's executed, signed, legally binding. Not with a key person clause and a termination, right? Howie continued. And not when the edit came from an account controlled by your floor. Color rose in Abbott's face. Are you accusing me? I'm stating facts, Howie replied. And I'm calling the board chair. The next 90 minutes were a sprint. Howie secured Barbara Hutchinson's signature on a governance letter that reaffirmed the original Schedule B, confirmed my sole authority per contract, and placed all future document control for this deal under legal, not the executive office. We sent the package to Shipley at 1:46 p.m. Monsieur Lou replied 3 minutes later, received. Proceeding with final sign-off as scheduled. Walt added a single line, appreciate the clarity. When the door finally closed, the room exhaled. Abbott didn't. He pointed at me. You went over my head. No, I said. I followed the contract you didn't read. We filed into the boardroom with our paper trail, the screenshots, the access log, the governance letter. Barbara Hutchinson listened, asked precise questions, then turned to Abbott. Did you authorize an edited schedule after execution? He chose the worst answer. I authorized a sensible adjustment. And did you route it through legal? Silence, then number. You could tell the board had made up their minds already. Effective immediately, Barbara said. You are removed from all matters related to this account and placed on administrative leave pending an external review of document controls and compliance. HR will follow up. He laughed once, disbelieving, then looked at me as if I'd pulled a trap door. For a second, I almost felt bad for him. He'd walked into a company he didn't understand, tried to make his mark too fast. But then I remembered standing in that lobby, holding whiskey for a man who couldn't spare 10 seconds for a handshake. His ego did him in. He left without another word. We signed with Shipley that afternoon. No champagne, no confetti, just quiet handshakes on a clean call, a calendar invite for a site visit, and a shared understanding that trust had been dented and then repaired with work, not speeches. Weeks later, the external review concluded. Abbott resigned to pursue other opportunities in a 3-sentence memo. His father, the board member who'd pushed for him, called me personally. I'm sorry, he said. I pushed for him. I was wrong. I didn't gloat. Just said, appreciate that. My role was made permanent. Chief Operating Officer, reporting to the board. They offered me a board seat. I declined. I'm an operator, I said, not a politician. They also offered equity. 10% vesting over 3 years. That I accepted. That evening I drove to the hospital. Carol was sitting up, looking better than she had in weeks. So, she said, how did it go with the new boss? I smiled. It worked out. Insurance is secure. Treatment continues. And I got a promotion. She squeezed my hand. I never doubted you. On my first day in the new office, Paula brought in a plant. Sturdy leaves, low maintenance. No flowers, she said, a small smile. They look nice in the lobby and wilt by morning. I set the plant by the window and thought about the moment I'd stood frozen, clutching a bottle of whiskey for a man who didn't bother with a hello. I'd thought I was powerless then. Turns out I'd only forgotten where my power actually lived. In the paper I'd earned, the people I'd shown up for, the standards I refused to lower, even when it would have been easier to disappear. That evening, Len Castellano stopped by. He'd been promoted to Chief of Staff, finally getting the recognition he deserved after 25 years of keeping the trains running. He set the bottle of Macallan on my desk. Someone had salvaged it from the reception area. Figured you earned this, he said. I opened it, poured 2 glasses, and handed him one. To competence, I said. Quiet, boring competence. Len raised his glass. And to patience, Mr. Brennan. Patience wins. We drank to that. It wasn't revenge. It was repair. And that was enough.